The opinions expressed within the content of this podcast solely that of our guests and do not reflect the views and beliefs of the Bigfoot and Paranormal Encounters podcast, its hosts or its affiliates.
The sun sinks low in the Allegheny Pines. There's a shadow moving between the timberlines. The city folks are sleeping, but the woods are wide awake. And there's more than just a wind making the laurel shake. Down a dirt track road where the cell service dies sits a man with a mic and the truth in his eyes. He's broadcasting live from the cryptid cabin floor, deep in Pennsylvania behind a bolted door. It's Bigfoot and Paranormal Encounters tonight, shining a lantern on the things that shun the light. Yeah, Dave Bruce is the pilot and the haunting stars now, so pour a stiff drink and wipe the sweat from your brow. Saturday night, 7 o'clock on the dot. The YouTube feed is humming and the tubes are getting hot. From the hair on a squatch to the ghost in the hall. If it's weird, if it's wild, yeah, Dave's heard it all. He ain't looking for fame, he ain't looking for gold. Just the stories that the world is too damn scared to be told. He's broadcasting live from the cryptid cabin floor, deep in Pennsylvania behind a bolted door. It's Bigfoot and Paranormal Encounters tonight, shining a lantern on the things that shun the light. Yeah, Dave Bruce is the pilot and the haunting stars now. 7 p.m. Eastern. The woods are calling your name. You're in the cabin now. Welcome to the show.
Dave Weigert was born and raised in Baltimore, Maryland. His family has seen and experienced far more than most families with strange encounters and tragic moments. Dave, the youngest of 4 children and the only living sibling, went on to have many strange encounters throughout his childhood and adult life. At age 20 he began his journey to learn about the unknown. Dave has a background with Baltimore County Fire and Police, private security, bodyguard, bank security and security for a Baltimore sports team and other law enforcement agencies. Dave started the Maryland Paranormal Research Team in 2003 and closed the doors in 2016. He started Other Voices on the MPRT radio network along with a newsletter. From 2007 till 2016 he was the curator for the haunted Ramblewood Mansion. He hosted years of paranormal research and investigations at the location. Dave was also a mobile DJ for 35 years. Dave was a speaker at a number of colleges speaking about the paranormal to students. Dave founded the Maryland Bigfoot Research Team in 2018 and left it to a former member of MPRT. He now resides in Bucks County, Pennsylvania near his grandchildren. He has since founded the Mid-Atlantic Bigfoot Research Team. He currently hosts a podcast weekly called Bigfoot and Paranormal Encounters Podcast. Let's welcome Dave to the podcast.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Bigfoot and Paranormal Encounters podcast. I'll tell you, we had a little difficulties there for a short time, and We fixed it. Well, Greg fixed it. Greg's wife fixed it. There you go. All right. So, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to introduce you to my co-host filling in for his wife tonight. Let's bring in Billy. 1 second here. There he is. How are you, sir?
I'm good, Dave. How are you tonight?
I'm very good. Very good. Like I told you earlier, more snow on the way, but that's the only issue that's bothering me right now. But you know what? I'm inside the cryptic cabin. I got heat. I got electric. I got plenty of food, plenty of hot chocolate, coffee, tea, you name it. So I'm going to be good to go. Let it dump.
There you go.
All right, Billy. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring in our two guests for tonight. And first, we're going to bring in Dr. Greg Stokes.
Good evening. Good to see you, Dave.
Greg, how are you this evening, sir?
Dr. Stokes.
Good.
Doing well.
Yeah, good to see you. Good to see you as well. Yep. All right, let's bring in our next guest. Her name is Bernadette.
Hello.
Bernadette, how are you, dear?
Great. Yourself?
Well, good. Yeah, we were stumped there for a few minutes, but Greg figured it out.
It was sticky.
That's good.
Yep.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let
Where did Greg go? Greg, come back.
I don't know.
Right here. It came back.
You're black, though.
Yeah, your whole screen's black, Greg.
I can see me on your screen.
You went black. We can hear you. Can't see you.
I didn't touch anything. Promise.
Just ghosts then.
Yeah. Spooky. There you go. So hopefully, I thought for a second there it was going to pop back on, but it most likely will. So, Greg, can you hear me pretty good?
I can hear you perfectly. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Let's do. Greg, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in the cryptid community.
Well, I grew up in the town of Regalsville, Pennsylvania, right on the Delaware River. And in 1955, there was a hurricane went right up the river, and Hurricane Diane flooded out the entire Delaware Valley. There was 40, 50 people got killed. It was pretty bad. And the federal government, in their infinite wisdom, decided to build the Tox Island Dam project, which was going to go in just north of the Delaware Water Gap, right above Route 80. And they were going to dam 29 miles of the river, 30-mile long lake. And after a lot of protesting and carrying on, they figured out that they couldn't put the dam in geologically. Well, what do you do with 30 miles of pristine wilderness river bottom that you've thrown everybody out of? They bulldozed over 200-year-old homes. They displaced businesses. So what they did was they made it into a wild and scenic area. So in '83, I was dating my wife. We went there. We camped at the old Turn Farm, which was a church camp when I was a kid. And we went back again in '84. So we set up our campsite. And you got to understand something now. In that valley, there's nothing in there. They displaced everybody. There had been a bunch of squatting and a bunch of nonsense that went on up there with some of the buildings that were left. But there are no homes, there are no businesses for almost 30 miles in that river bottom. And so we set up our tent and our fire, and I had about a 40-foot drop to the water, made dinner, got everything up high because it's bear country, and we settled in for the night. And about 9:45, just as it started getting good and dark, something walked up on our campsite and proceeded to go from the top of the bank around the firelight to the top of the bank. So from the south to the north and the north to the south, just outside the firelight. And whatever it was definitely walking on two legs. I could hear it. And eventually it broke a stick that was big enough that my wife turned to me and went, "What was that?" And I turned to her and I said, "I don't know." And she's like, "What do you mean you don't know?" Because she knew how I grew up. I'd grown up hunting and fishing. I've been fishing since I could hold a rod in my hands, and I've been hunting. This was my 60th year of hunting. So I started when I was 4. And we all grew up camping, trapping, hunting, fishing. Heck, when we were kids, we spent more nights sleeping outside than we did inside. So she was a little concerned when I said I didn't know what it was. And you know, I said, "It's been out there about an hour." And she's like, "What do you mean it's been out there an hour? Why don't you tell me?" It's like, well, I didn't want to scare her. Meanwhile, my heart was trying to choke me to death through my nose. I mean, you only need to see the movie Deliverance once to know that we might have had a problem, because there was nothing where we were. I was sitting with a fillet knife under one leg and a hatchet under the other. I didn't own a gun. And actually, knowing what I know now and knowing what happened later, I'm glad I didn't have a gun, because it could have gotten pretty ugly. So we sat there, just talking around the fire for another hour, and you could hear it walking. But I owned a $1.99 Kmart special flashlight at that point in my life. I was just starting out in life. And so it wouldn't have lit up outside of the firelight anyway. But about 11 o'clock, we went and laid down. And about 10 minutes after we laid down, this thing let loose with the scream from hell. And we both sat up, bolt upright in the tent. She goes, "What the hell is that?" I said, "I have no idea, but I am not staying in here," because it was definitely territorial, and it was definitely directed at us. There's nobody else out there. And it had this very, very deep guttural tone to the scream, and it had a very, very high pitched tone to the scream. But the thing that I will never, ever forget is the resonance that this thing had. It shook my body so hard I couldn't see the inside of the tent. It was like looking through shimmering water. It just vibrated my whole body, my chest, my head, everything. And I'd love to tell you that I went out of the tent out of bravery. No, it was terror, straight up. And I've never been scared in the woods. I spent many, many, many nights in the woods. I've been startled before. I've had deer jump up right next to me. I've had grouse blow out next to my head. Rabbits go out, pheasants go out between my feet. That'll make you yell like a little girl, but it's, you know what it is. This was unlike any animal I'd ever heard before in my life. And I've heard wolves in the wild, bobcats. I know the sounds that mountain lions make. And, this was unlike any animal that I'd ever heard or experienced before. And I went right out of the tent, stood with the fire at my back, and I'm looking at inky blackness. I mean, there's no light pollution in that valley. It was dark. So I figured what its problem was my fire. And one of the rules that I had when I did camp was you gather 5 times as much firewood as you think you might need for the night. So I stoked that fire up really good, and went back in and laid down. I didn't get a whole lot of sleep that night. And in the morning, I got up and I looked around for probably a good 45 minutes to try and find sign. And you could see where something big had gone through the brush. But we had a summer like we had this past summer. There was no rain. It was a drought. It was pretty dry. So, but that has led to 40 plus years of research, asking questions, digging on the internet, looking, trying to find something that was pretty close to that sound. And the closest I could find was a recording. Some mushroom hunter was out and something screamed down. And that was pretty close to what we heard. But this was, when it did it, it was only 30 feet from our tent. So, but if you draw a 20-mile circle around where we were, I know 9 people that have seen at least one. I know one guy that saw 2. I know somebody who came out of his cabin in the middle of the night back in 1973. And he said, "Yeah, I come around the corner of the cabin and there I was, all 6'4" of me, looking up at all 9 foot of him." I said, "What?" He said, "Sasquatch, Bigfoot." "How far away were you?" He reached his hand out and said, "Could have touched him." And I asked him what it smelled like, because our experience, there was no smell. But one thing I did notice was everything shut down. There was no crickets. There was no katydids, there was nothing. Everything had been super, super quiet. So you could definitely hear this thing walking. But John told me that this thing smelled like a dumpster on a 90-degree week with a dead deer laying in it that a dog had rolled through. And I spoke with the gentleman online who came down through that valley. He was making a run from Connecticut to downtown about 3-4 days a week. And that's how he came down through there. He said, yep, I almost had a family of 3. The little one was 5 foot tall, mommy was 7, and dad was 9 foot tall, and he was growling at him. And he said, I probably would have heard him, except I had the truck stood on its nose. He had a pickup truck. He had it stood on its nose. And, he had the radio up. He said he had a place to go to the bathroom about a half mile down the road. Not after that. He waited till he got to civilization. And again, there's nothing on that road for 30 miles. It's just dark road. So, but that's what got me interested, and been researching ever since, and just talking to anybody who will listen, trying to get their stories. I've collected hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of stories from people from all over this country, Canada, Tibet, Nepal. Haven't spoken to anybody from Australia yet, but
So, Greg, what do you think a Bigfoot is? Do you think it's supernatural? Do you think it's associated with aliens, or what is your theory?
I think that's one of the greatest questions that can be asked. And this is strictly my opinion. I believe that if you think you know exactly what it is, you might want to look at what you're doing. There's evidence that they could be Gigantopithecus blacki, which was a great ape that lived in China and the Pakistan, Vietnam area. They have 2,000 teeth and 4 partial jaws that measure out, when you do the study and do the mathematics, it measures out to about a 9 foot tall, 900-pound animal. There's possibility that it might be that. There's way too many incidences where people saw UFOs or orbs and were then face to face to Bigfoot. There was one here in Pennsylvania up around Lake Erie. There's a park up there back in the 60s. There was 2 couples that were fooling around, 2 outside the car and 2 inside the car. A UFO went over top of them, hesitated over the hill that was there, and 5 minutes later, there was a Bigfoot standing in front of them. I read way too many articles about them using portals. And I can tell you from personal experience, coming up Route 95, 11:30 at night, we saw one that was cloaked up right next to the road. And it was a pale green shimmering light. You could kind of see through it, but you couldn't really see through it. And I talked to the people that I had been visiting in Florida, and they saw, yeah, it's cloaked up Bigfoot. And that particular friend saw one in Florida disappear in front of his eyes. And I had people tell me, well, it probably spider crawled away. I said, no, he was looking straight at it. It was standing in 6 inches of grass, and it simply disappeared right where it stood. So there's a lot of different ways you can look at this. And I know that it's a strange phenomenon. What the answer is, I don't know. But I can tell you this. We were coming down through that valley where we had our encounter at 3:30 in the morning. We're coming back from a wedding up in Maine. And we had a Subaru, and that Subaru had this collision avoidance system. And as we dropped down off of the mountain into that valley, the car hit the brakes hard. There was something in front of me. I couldn't see it, but the cameras could. There was nothing in the road. So yeah, I mean, there's too many cases of people saying it was there in front of me and then it was gone instantaneously. So it's a great question. What is it? We don't know. I know the government won't tell you.
Yeah. I have yeah, they sure will, and we'll get into that because I got a good question for you in a bit. But I want to answer Scott Cash. Thanks for tuning in. Greg Stokes apparently lost his video somehow. Earlier had an audio problem, but he was able to fix that. So we got. There's another thing that's going on in the chat room right now. I just want to take care of it. Does anybody know Daniel Smith? I think I do.
I don't.
Okay, the reason I said that is because he made a comment. Sorry to leave this chat, but you guys are not learning anything about them. I think it's a troll, and I think it's someone I've been dealing with for a while now. But let's just move on to the next thing. And goodbye. Sorry you had to leave. All right. So, Billy, do you have a question for Greg?
One of the ones I was actually going to ask, I think you already answered, because I was going to ask, have any of you all really had any like moments in the woods where you truly felt like unsafe?
Well, when I had my experience, I thought we were going to be attacked. There was no doubt about my mind. This thing was unhappy that we were there. And my daughter once asked me, why do you think it screamed at you like that? And I was like, well, if you lived somewhere for 30 years unmolested and without human contact, and all of a sudden you had a fire in your living room, you wouldn't be upset about that? I have talked to, I've talked to other researchers, and they said it was probably a young one that challenged you. And again, going back to my statement earlier about having a gun, I was scared enough. If I did have a pistol or I did have a gun, I would open fire on the sound. It was close enough I could have hit it. And that would not have been good at all. Okay. And knowing what I know now, do I think that there's ones out there that are pretty vicious? Yeah, I do. I think they're like anything else. There's friendly ones and there's not so friendly ones. I've read all kinds of stories about them being benevolent and helping people and things like this. But I've also read stories, and I'm a collector of stories. I go out to the Greater Eastern Sportsman Show every year and just talk to any outfitter that'll listen. I try and collect stories from people who I know are out there, and there's some pretty interesting encounters that people have had. There was one locally to our area near Ringing Rocks. I talked to a fellow. This was 2018. He had one step out while he was hiking the trails in there, and it was only 30 feet from him, and it just put its arms out and just did that, and he just backed away from it and left. But again, plenty big enough that it could have hurt him, and it didn't. So, but.
All right, interesting. Let's direct our attention to Bernadette. Bernadette, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're in the cryptid, I guess, / paranormal as well.
Why am I here? I don't know. No. I don't have an exciting story like Greg. I am not a knower. I'm a believer, but there's another word. Dr. Meldrum, rest in peace, who I met, said that he considers himself, who also never had an encounter, said that he's not a believer, he's convinced. And I guess that's where I fall in, right? I've heard enough, read enough, listened to enough stories where I'm totally convinced without having my own experience. And I know people love to hate on those shows like Finding Bigfoot, but it was kind of like that show. I used to watch it just for fun, right? It was for laughs. It was just a Friday night or whatever kind of a thing. Take your mind off the rest of the world. Watch it and kind of laugh at Bobo, and all of the rest of them. But I don't know. At some point, I jumped into this, what I considered fictional, fun, fantasy television show. And I think about it sometimes, and I think I stumbled upon an article in our local newspaper, but it was like an AP article that said that Pennsylvania was the third most frequent state of Bigfoot sightings. And I kind of laughed out loud, like, what? Are you kidding me? Like, even if I considered Bigfoot being real, at that time, it never, ever cross my mind that that Bigfoot was in Pennsylvania. And of course, I Googled it right away, Pennsylvania Bigfoot, got all these hits. So I was shocked. And then, of course, I went Bucks County Bigfoot and the BFRO, which I know there's a love-hate thing going on there with that group, immediately pulled up 5 encounters, which I, again, looked at tonight before coming on here, ranging from, 1968 to October 7th. So 5 encounters that BFRO documented in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. And if people are here outside of our area, we're just, north of Philadelphia, right? We're not, you know, there's, of course, a lot of sightings in like, Western Pennsylvania, Allegheny Mountains, um, places like, Washington State, Oregon State, which I would have expected. But I was totally shocked myself to see that there had been these, documented cases in Bucks County. So I immediately was just kind of drawn in. So, and then when I Googled, I found groups on Facebook and other places. I joined them all. Any group, not just Pennsylvania. I mean, I've joined every group that I can find and just began reading stories, right? Just began reading and going to podcasts and listening. And, you know, what what got me to believe even before meeting someone like Dr. Meldrum or going to a conference was how similar the stories were, right? So you would be reading an encounter or you would be like, listening to somebody, and it didn't matter if they were from Maine or Florida or Washington or Kentucky, there was the similarities, right? Um, the
Mhm.
rock throwing, hiding behind the tree, the swaying, the paralleling, which I mean, like they would walk you out of the woods, right? So you're in their territory and somebody hears them and they hear something on the left or the right, walking them basically out of their area. And the other thing that really got me was how many of these stories started out like, well, it was 30 years ago and I was on my grandparents' farm and this happened. So these people experienced something that stayed with them for 30 or more years and,
Right.
scared them or intrigued them, and they kept it with them and they had details, right? Down to everything, what they were wearing, what it smelled like, what it looked like, what they were wearing, the weather, what happened. And they didn't have anywhere to share it back then, right? There wasn't the internet, there wasn't these shows or organizations, but they remembered and maybe they told somebody, but their family and friends laughed at them, right? But now we're in a time where it's sort of like more acceptable. There is a place to share, right? There's the internet. There's all these groups on Facebook. There's podcasts. And so I just thought all of these people are not lying, right? And it's so similar, their encounters. So I just like went full in and joined all these groups and wound up starting this Bucks County group. And Greg became my co-chair, and we had our first meeting in the fall of 2021 at a Warminster restaurant, and we had about 50 people show up, including a newspaper reporter who I didn't invite. He just showed up. He wrote an article, and now we've been a group, you know, and we meet about twice a year, sometimes more. Um, we're a Facebook group, but we're people that are interested in Bigfoot. And oh, and one more thing, really, I remember reading about that little boy. So I guess I was already into it by then. And there was a story that kind of made the news, that made the national news.
Mhm.
This little boy, I always forget if it was like, North Carolina or Georgia, but he was lost in the woods for like 3 days. And then he was found alive, and it was like a miracle. And the parents, and they brought him to the hospital, and he was pretty much okay, just, And they asked him, "What did you do for three?" You know, he's a 3-year-old boy. And he said, "Well, the big bear
The friendly
took care
bear.
of me." What's that?
The friendly bear.
The friendly bear. And right away I
A
was like,
friendly
that was
bear.
no
Yeah.
bear.
Yeah.
That was no bear. It was a Bigfoot. And so I was already onto it by then. And yeah, and I'm just totally in. I've gone to conferences. I have books, you know, I just love it. It's sort of like the hobby. It's my step away from what's happening in the real world, and my kids laugh because they're like, "Wait a minute, this is what you do," you know? Um, that's okay. I don't care who laughs. I really don't. I'm convinced, and that's where I'm at, and I'm learning. So I love listening. I can hear Greg's story again and again and again, and I love it every time. And I love hearing, you know, news stories. And since then, I've gathered about 5 stories in Bucks County that are not on that BFR website, and I'm sure that there's more that we don't know of. So that's where I'm at.
Dave, can I
Thank you.
address something that Bernadette said?
You sure can. Yep.
Okay. So I've had people laugh at me. I've had people, you're an educated man, you've been mayor. It's like, how can you think that these things exist? And what I say is, one, you weren't laying in the tent with me. Okay. That's number one. Number two,
Yep.
okay, there are stories about these creatures that date back to the times of Christ. The oldest story that I can find for Native Americans here in the United States were the Black Apache out in California. This was 05 AD. They took one of their babies and ate it, and they went to war with them. So, and the earliest that I can find for whites was none other than Leif Erikson. And then I asked them this. All right, how many acres is the Congo, the jungle? Okay, it's 70 million acres. There are over 700 million acres of woods in North America and over 700 million acres of mountains. There's places in North America where people have never gone. And in the Pocono Mountains, where the ice age, when the ice receded last time, it dug out these swamps up there. I could take you places up there where you could stand 10 feet away from me with a road flare in your hands at night and not be able to see me. It's that thick. And then I remind them, okay, we have 774 million acres of woods here. The Congo is only 70 million. Now, how long in Africa were explorers going in and talking about gorillas before they finally killed one and took it into London? 250 years. Okay. Now, we all know what chimpanzees are, but a lot of people don't know what bonobos are. And bonobos live on the opposite side of the Congo River. They weren't discovered until the 1950s. And there was recently in 2004, another species of great ape found over there called a billy ape. They're about a 400 or 500 pound chimpanzee. They eat leopards. That's a badass primate. You're going to eat a leopard. Okay. They weren't discovered until 2004. Now, here in North America, people know about plains bison, okay, the buffalo that everybody knows, but they don't know about wood buffalo. And wood buffalo were thought to have been shot off years and years and years ago. There was a bush pilot that was flying over the Northwest Territory in Canada and flew over a herd of 400 of them. Now, 400 big dumb buffalo can hide from people. What do you think something that actually doesn't want to be seen by you can do? I mean, you know, and I've talked to outfitters, professional hunters. Well, I've been in the woods forever and I've never seen one. It's like, right, because they didn't let you see them. Okay. I'm a firm believer that they're going to let you see them if they want you to see them. Would you be wanting to be encountered with people with every time that you saw them, they shot you? No, I don't think so. So, but, you know, when you start putting some facts out, you know, all of a sudden it makes the gears grind a little bit and they have to think about well, there can't be this. Well, it's because you live in town. Have you ever gone into the woods? Have you ever been
Mm-hmm.
4 miles, 5 miles off the closest road?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's a
Yeah.
whole different experience being in the woods like that.
Yeah. Hey, Greg, I'm going to post a question for you, and then I have a question. And I'm sorry, Billy. I'll let you get in there. All right, let me post this.
Yeah, so there was no smell on our part. And yeah, I was terrified because I thought we were going to be, I didn't know what was going to happen, but I know that it was definitely letting us know that it didn't want us there. It scared me to death. And I've never been scared in the woods. I spent hundreds of nights in the woods growing up as a kid. I don't camp anymore. You will never see me in a tent again.
Really?
Now, with that, I know other people that have been scared. I know a couple of chiropractors that were fly fishing on a creek out south of Pittsburgh. They were down on the West Virginia, Pennsylvania border, and they heard a big splash behind them, and they turned around, and the 9-footer was about 30 yards away from them, had turned and walked up the creek. I said, "What'd you do?" He said, "We got out of there. The thing was monstrous." And the thing that they couldn't get over was, yeah, it was like 9-10 feet tall, but it was 4 or 5 feet across the shoulders, and it was 4 feet thick at the chest. And that scared them. They said it was an absolute monster. And I told them, I said, "Look, he was just passing through. If he didn't want you there, you'd have known. He'd have been throwing rocks at you, he'd have been screaming at you, or he would have just attacked you, and you would have never known he was even there." So, but they have gone back there fishing. But what was your other question, sir?
All right. Let me just now get ready, folks, because this is a very sensitive question I have for Dr. Greg Stokes. It's something I heard on another podcast. I'm just going to mention one word to him, and he could take it from there if he chooses to. If not, I totally understand. And we'll probably receive some, I don't know, maybe a little gift from the government or something like that. But here's the word: Pentagon.
Oh, yes.
All right.
Go.
So
Yeah.
I've had experience with government officials on a couple of occasions. The one time I was looking for a place to hunt bear, it took me 30 years to go back to the area where we had our encounter. And I talked to a park ranger there, told him, and we were only a mile from where we had our encounter. And I told him what had happened. And I asked him if he or one of his colleagues had ever seen something like that. And he just looked at me. He wouldn't answer me. And I said to him, I said, "Oh, I was in the military. I know it's like to be told to keep your mouth shut. Sounds like you or one of your colleagues has seen one of these things, and you've been told to be quiet." He just smiled and drove away. And as far as the Pentagon goes, I had a cousin in the Army, got promoted from major to lieutenant colonel. And the pinning ceremony was on the innermost circle of the Pentagon. And it was really quite spectacular ceremony. Our other cousin, who's a retired captain from the Navy, he did the pinning ceremony. There was about 400 people there. And afterwards, we got the nickel tour of the Pentagon. We got to see Saddam Hussein's gold-plated rifle. He showed us where the plane came in. There's a lot of interesting offices there. And a lot of them, you walk by the office, the door's closed, and all cell phones are sitting outside because they can listen to you and everything else like that. But as we're walking down the hallway, there was an office of Bigfoot research and sightings in the Pentagon. And my whole family turned and looked at me like, "What?" I said, "I've been trying to tell you." Okay? You don't want to listen, but trying to tell you.
Mm-hmm.
I was recently at a conference, and the one gentleman that was there had been at Mount St. Helens right after it went up, and he was there as part of the recovery team with the Air Force. And he said the government went in there. There was quite a few Bigfoot that were laying around that had been killed by that blast. They were picking them up and taking them out. They take them to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. But he was in one of the outer encampments, well away from Central Command, and a big male came into their camp, led them to where he was, which was he had a big cave, and his female was laying there on the ground. She was all burned up. So they did first aid on her, left Silvadine ointment, which is an ointment that was developed to treat napalm burns. They left a big jug of that with them and left. They left them there. So, and the thing is these people have no reason to lie to me. They have no reason to expound on their experiences. There's no need to exaggerate or else like this, because when you've had an encounter with one of these things, it's so freaking strange to begin with that you just I can't tell you how many nights I laid awake and just ran that whole evening through my head. And Bernadette's heard my story a dozen times over. It never changes. I don't need to change it. It was just the weirdest thing that's ever happened to me in the woods. And somebody had asked earlier if I was worried to go in the woods anymore. And when I hunt, I have a couple of friends of mine that I hunt bear with every year, and they tend to stay, within the first 1,000 yards of the road because, let's face it, getting a big bear out of the woods is not easy. And I tend to just sneak through the woods. I just, I go in until it's going to take me till dark to come back out. But one thing that I always do is I talk to them. I just, I know it sounds crazy, but it's like, look, I'm not here to hurt you. I'm not here to be a problem for you. I'm here to find a bear. You don't have to worry about me. And now up in the Poconos in Pike County, there was a fellow that had lived up there, and he's gone now, God rest his soul. His name was Roscoe Stiles. And Roscoe was in his 90s, and you'd be, a long ways back into the woods and you would come across Roscoe. He just spent an enormous amount of time in the woods. And anybody who's hunted Pike County for any kind of period of time knows of him or has run into him. He said he saw one. And I know somebody else up off of Well Road. There's a 14,000 acre state game lands up there. And I know somebody who was back in there a mile and a half off the road. And this lady was up against the swamp. She heard all the splashing and sloshing around in the swamp. She thought it was bear coming out. And Bigfoot come out, stood about 80 feet from her, and then turned around, ran back into the woods. She called her boyfriend, who was actually on the way out, on the radio, said, "You need to come over here." And he was like, "Well, yeah, come to us, come to me, because it's time to get out of here." Where they were, it takes about an hour and a half to get out to the road. And it's all a series of steps. You're down in the swamp, which is down low. And so it was time for them to get going. And she was like, "I'm not leaving till you get over here and get to my deer stand." And he came over. "What's up?" She told him. And I said, the first thing out of my mouth was, "How big was it?" And he said, "That's exactly what I asked her." And she said, "Look at the branch that's above your head." He said it was 9 feet off the ground. She said its head was even with that. And I asked if there was any footprints or anything else like that. He said it was swamp moss. You could see where something big had stood there, but it had then, walked away and didn't really leave any discernible footprints. But it's just one of many encounters that I've gathered from Pennsylvania. I live on a farm in Wind Gap, and there is there's a farm between me and the Blue Mountain where the Appalachian Trail is. And I know somebody who's their fifth generation on that farm. The whole back of that farm is orchard, which they leave go because there's a family of 4 that live there. And I asked to be able to come over and see them, and they don't let anybody on their property at all because it bothers them. But over the mountain and a little further west, if you drop down into Broadheadsville, there's a Dunkelberger's is there, and I was there buying some stuff, and the subject of Bigfoot come up, and they're like, "Oh yeah, right up on Blue Mountain Road. We call him the Blue Mountain Screamer. You can hear him anytime you want." So again, like Bernadette, I have a couple dozen books and a whole collection of Bigfoot stuff. As a matter of fact, I've got this Bigfoot Saw Me, But Nobody Believes Him Lake George, New York cup that a friend of mine gave me. But it's an interesting subject matter. And I tell people, it's like, if you're going to get on the internet, be careful because it'll suck you in. we were living above my chiropractic office in Rigglesville, and we finally got the internet. And I went down like 11 o'clock and just, started looking and digging. I mean, I've got thousands of hours of digging on the internet, talking to anybody who will listen and give me a decent answer. And again, I don't care what anybody thinks of me. I really don't.
Yeah, I don't either.
You weren't laying in the tent with me. You didn't have the experience I have. You haven't talked to the people that I have. But my wife came down at about 3 o'clock in the morning, and because she realized I wasn't in bed with her. What are you doing? I said, I'm looking at Bigfoot stuff. She can't look at porn like a normal man. It's like, get to bed. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. So, but it'll definitely pull you in. It's and once you've had an experience with one of these animals, you will never, ever, ever look at the woods the same. Not ever. So.
Well, thanks for answering that question. I'll tell you what, Dr. Greg, I'm gonna look forward to going outside tomorrow and either seeing a black car with 4 strangers in it, or look up and see a black helicopter. I'll get back to you. I'll let you. Yeah. All right. What we're gonna do is I'm gonna go to a few commercials, and then we're gonna come back, and we're gonna talk about an upcoming meeting that's gonna take place Tuesday. We get dumped on with a tremendous amount of snow, but we'll see what happens. All right, so I'm gonna go to a few commercials, and we'll be right.
Okay.
My camera working now?
No, Greg, look, work on your camera. We can hear you perfectly, which is great.
I can see my face in my camera here.
You're totally
The
black.
problem is he's standing behind one of the black SUVs.
Yeah. Listen,
I'm going to
Billy,
visit the bathroom real fast. I'll be back.
I have patients that live down near Souderton, Pennsylvania, and they have gone over by State Game Lands 139 by Quakertown, and 2 different times they have handprints on their car, big as my head.
Wow.
Yep. So, and I just talked to a guy from South Carolina. He was on one of the Bigfoot sites, and he was concerned about what was going on around his house. And so I messaged him, and he wanted to know what people called them. He said all he ever heard them called was a hairy man. And I told him, I said, that is really kind of regional to where you're at. There's, in the South, they call them wood booger, booger man, rougarou, hairy man. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And that reminds me, make sure that I tell you the story about what happened to me last fall when I was down in Florida. I got a pretty interesting set of stories to tell you, and it goes back to the government too.
Okay.
But
apparently the government,
there's hundreds and hundreds of names, and you go over to Nepal, or you go over to Tibet. They call them metta over there. We have a gas station near me that it's run by a bunch of Tibetans, and I was there talking to the guy at one time and said, "You ever seen a Yeti?" And he didn't know that word, so I pulled a picture of it up on my phone and showed it to him, and he was like, "Yeah, metta." So I asked him. I said, "You ever seen one of these?" He said his grandmother had a yak that she was herding down a mountain path. And the metta come off the mountain, rip the throat out of the yak, throw it over its shoulder, turn around, walk back up the mountain with it. So,
Greg, see if you can fix your camera.
Depends on where you're at.
I don't know what happened.
Yeah, Russia, they call them Almaste, they call them Mensch. It just, again, depends on where you're at. So, and
I think the government,
the Indians in North America, they have thousands of names for this thing. And when you do the conversion, and it's part of my PowerPoint presentation that I do, when you do the conversion to English, some of it's not nice. I mean, brave stealer, child stealer, man who runs and hides. You look at and I'm sure I'm not going to, skunk ape,
Skunk ape, Florida.
Again, it just depends on where you're at. Mm-hmm. But I'm not going to pronounce this tribe's name right, but Salish, they're up in the Pacific Northwest. They will not cut down a tree because they say that they live in the tree. And their word for it translates into brave stealer. And one of the things that they do not do in their culture, you do not whistle in the woods, because they know that they mimic and they come to the whistle, which is not what you want going on. So it's the same thing with gifting. I don't recommend anybody gift them, because if you stop gifting them, they get.
That's controversial, but a lot of people do it.
Wow.
Oh.
Okay, in the chat room, we're going to come back to you in a few minutes. I tried to go to a commercial, but something prevented me from doing so. So I'm going to do a second attempt. I'm going to try to do it now, and then we'll
I don't
be
know
right
why
back.
my camera's not working. I mean, I can see myself on my.
Deep in the woods, the stories are real. But on the airwaves, the truth can get lost in the noise.
Gary Kendrick is host of Sasquatch Watch Radio. Every Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, we cut through the chaos. We aren't here for the drama or the ridicule. We're here for the evidence.
Join us each Monday as we talk with researchers, investigators, and eyewitnesses who have come face to face with the unknown.
It's a serious look at me in a respectful environment.
Find us on YouTube, Facebook, and Rumble. Subscribe today and visit us at squatchradio.com. Sasquatch Radio, the search for the truth starts here.
Just click on that SWR logo. Always fascinated by the unexplainable? Strange Knocks magazine is the go-to. Flip it open, and boom, mind-blowing mysteries. Zero fluff. Packed with eerie tales and uncanny stories that mess with your head in the best way. Perfect for those nights when Netflix just doesn't cut it. Once got so lost in a story, forgot the pizza in the oven. Check out strangenocks.com and let mystery knock back.
I'm Tracy Jones from the podcast Beyond the Veil, airing every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube. Listen, you have a question or a comment, or there's something about the paranormal you want to know, but you don't have anybody to talk to, you can talk to me. I'll handle any question you got. Just type in the search engine the @ symbol, Tracy Jones, TRACEY JONES hyphen K4F. So, @ Tracy Jones hyphen K4F. Tune in. I'd love to see you there.
Looking for magic, looking for more. Step right into crafty witch soiree's door. Candles and crystals, charms on display. Witchy supplies to light up your day. Oh, enchantment everywhere. Oh, spellbound in the air. Religious treasures, sacred and sweet. Handcrafted walking sticks, sturdy and neat. Mystic and magical, old world flair. You'll find a secret just waiting there. Shadow and moonlight flicker outside. Inside the room where the velvet drapes hide. Whispers and laughter shimmer and spin. Open your heart and come on in. Looking for magic, looking for more. Step right into crafty witch soiree's door. Candles and crystals, charms on display. Witchy supplies to light up your day. Oh, enchantment everywhere. Oh, spellbound in the air.
I'll tell you, these buttons are really, really, really making me mad. All right, let's bring everybody back in. Let's bring Billy in. Let's bring Bernadette in. Let's. Who are we missing?
Billy.
Oh, Billy.
And Greg's still dark. I don't know why.
Yeah, it looks like I'm going to have a talk with StreamYard
Okay,
tomorrow.
I
Or
cannot hear
I can't talk to
anything.
the government if they're doing it. So
That's right.
they're strange, I'll tell you. All right, let's go back to the chat room and. All right, and Kimberly says, I don't agree
I can't hear
with
you.
Gipsy. You can't hear me? How about Bernadette? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Mm-hmm.
Okay, Billy?
I can hear you.
Okay, Greg, can you hear me now?
Oh, geez.
Greg, can you hear any of the rest of us?
I have no sound of the broadcast right now.
We can hear you.
Okay, let me open it back up. Okay, can you hear me now, Greg? Oh, wow. Okay, Billy, you can hear me okay, right?
Yes, can.
Okay. All right, so it looks like we lost. Okay, we lost Greg there. Let me
come back, Greg.
Let me go back down and check something. No. Okay, I think we lost Greg altogether. Hi, Tracy. Okay, and Kelly says, "Oh, we you guys." Okay. Really, really strange. Really weird. Let's see if Dr. Greg pops back in. I'm going to wait for him, but I'm going to go to Bernadette and Bernadette. When it comes to Bigfoot, do you think they're going in and out of portals?
You know, this whole world, right? Once I accepted that I believed in this creature. Oh, Greg, we can see you now.
Good.
Oh my God, we can see you and hear you.
Good. I logged off and logged back on. So
yay! Plug it in and unplug it. It works, right?
Right.
Yeah. So I would say about portals, you know, it was
All
weird
right,
enough for
Bernadette, I just wanted to throw something in there. One of my colleagues just told me that Michael, who is a colleague also, is having issues on his platform right now with his show. So I guess it's a government shutdown. I don't know.
Greg, you went dark again. You were there and now you're gone.
Yeah, you guys all flashed off and came back on again.
Well, we can hear you, but we can't see you. We saw you briefly, but now you're gone. I don't know. But
I'll
if
try
we can
it
hear
again.
you, that's good.
Turn lights back on.
Good to hear you, though, you know.
Yeah. So another colleague is having the same issue. Well, not the same issue, but issues with his platform as well. So,
all
right. Let's see if let's bring Greg back up. There we go. Let's try again.
Good.
Okay. Go ahead, Bernadette.
Now, I was just going to say that, you know, when I got into this Bigfoot world, as I call it, it was strange enough to admit to people, yes, I believe in this creature that is like a joke for most people, right? I believe in Bigfoot, haha. Yeah, I do. You know, it was strange enough to believe that. And then as I dive deeper and deeper and deeper, reading more and more stories, I just couldn't not dismiss some of these stories where people were talking about portals, even though that is just so on the surface, just like absolutely
Are you
strange,
kidding?
right? But I've read enough encounters of people that talk about these things that have no reason to lie. They're not seeking fame and fortune. And in fact, people could ridicule them. A lot of people don't want to tell their stories because they could lose their job or their standing in the community and such, and yet they will speak of these things. So I like to say that I'm open to it all. I can't imagine it in some ways, but I'm very much open to the fact that these people that are talking about these situations with portals are telling the truth. And they've seen what they've seen. They've encountered what they've encountered.
Okay. Billy, do you
So-
have any questions or for Dr. Greg or Bernadette?
Yeah. This question might be a little heavy for the mood. And of course, panel, feel free and welcome to our audiences to comment as well. If Bigfoot were 100% proven real tomorrow, how do you think that would affect things like, say, conservation or science?
It's a great question. One of the things that's been brought up, there's a Gulf Coast Bigfoot Research Organization. They've made no bones about it. They want to bring one in front of science. Whether they catch it or kill it, they want to bring it in front of science. Now, there's places in the world, places in the United States and Canada where it's straight up illegal. And I guarantee if you kill one, they're going to bring you up on charges. You're going to do time because they're going to immediately put it down as an endangered species. And yes, if it was discovered, it's going to, and this is one of the reasons why I think the government keeps it shut down and quiet. You think the spotted owl caused trouble with logging and shutting down whole towns up in the Pacific Northwest. You're talking about billions of dollars of lumber, billions of dollars of development of land, whether it be houses or whatever. But it's a very unique situation. And to that question, I was just recently down to Florida to play in a baseball tournament, and my Uber driver was from Ohio. He's probably about 70 years old. And I asked him, I said, "You got any good Bigfoot stories to tell me from Ohio?" And he says, "Are you serious?" I said, "Yeah, I'm serious." So Zelensky State Park, they were pheasant hunting, and he was in the tent. His partner started yelling, "It's so huge! It's so huge! It's so huge!" You come running out, and it was just inside the tree line, and it left. So they cooked dinner and went and laid down, and because they're going to get up early to go pheasant hunting in the morning. He had wrapped up a pack of four hamburgers in aluminum foil, and had it setting on top of his core. When they woke up in the morning, they went out, and that aluminum foil was perfectly open flat, and all four of those burgers were gone. So that was one story that he told me. The second one, he said he was sitting in a bar having a beer, and the guy next to him was a professional snake hunter. Hurricane Andrew let all kinds of wild animals and snakes loose in the Everglades. So they actively hunt these things because they kill all the native animals. And this guy that he was sitting next to in the bar started telling him about how he had found skunk apes. They call them skunk apes or swamp apes down there. That had been killed by these big boa constrictors and pythons. And when he approached the authorities about this, he's like, "You just leave them alone. You don't touch them. Don't bring them out. Just leave them where they sit." And this gentleman had befriended the Lee County sheriff. Lee County is where Punta Gorda and Fort Myers is. And he asked him, are there, and, when you drive through that area, you look into what used to be the old Everglades and the forest, besides the road that's going through there, it's some seriously thick, nasty jungle. And he asked this sheriff, are there skunk apes or swamp apes here in the Punta Gorda, Fort Myers area? And his answer was pretty straightforward. "I am not at liberty to discuss that." And that's all he said about it. That was it.
Mhm.
So I hope that answers your question, Billy.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Now, one quick follow up on that: if the if the vegetation in that area is so thick, how do you think they're traveling through that? A creature that size.
Just like any other animal, down the game trails, path of least resistance. In my
Mhm.
area, I'm not even 2 miles from the Appalachian Trail, and we know that they travel down the Appalachian Trail. Up in the Poconos, there's places I can't hunt any of that stuff anymore. I'm getting too old to do it. The game trail is only a couple feet high, and you're crawling to your rifle, and then you're getting back in there and you're praying you don't shoot anything because now you got to get it out of there. But um, when you've got a 9 foot animal with a 7 foot stride, they can go through this stuff. They can go through snow too, pretty well. I talked
Mhm.
to a father son team that had a hunting outfit in Manitoba, and I asked him, "You guys have any Sasquatch in your area?" And the son turned to the father, "Should we tell him?" It's like, "Sure, you should tell me." Well, they had a couple of brothers that had hunted with them over several occasions, and they dropped the one brother off at the first farm to go into his tree stand, and then they went about 4 miles over, and the guide and the other brother sat together for the entire day. And in the evening, when they went back, they picked this first brother up, and he was not happy. He was being really ornery with the guide. And his brother was like, "What's your problem?" It's like, "Well, you guys think you're funny." It's like, "Well, what are you talking about? You think you're funny? What are you talking about? You run by my tree stand first thing in the morning in a giant gorilla suit. I didn't see a deer all day." And the guys said, "We were together 4 miles away at another farm. We didn't come by." So they went back out there, and the footprints in the snow were 18 inches long, 8 inches across, and had a 7.5 foot stride length in thigh deep snow. So, and I've talked to people. I met a gentleman who had seen a cheetah take a gazelle in Africa, and he said he saw a Bigfoot take a deer here in Pennsylvania, and he said that the Bigfoot was faster than the cheetah. So, and you hear that, you get reports, and it's like I just couldn't get over how
Wow.
fast this thing moved through the woods. But to answer your question, just the path of least resistance, like anything else. So they've got to get through the woods just like everybody else, whether it be a bear, deer, cats, whatever.
Okay. I almost forgot to do this, and I apologize to Dr. Greg and Bernadette. Let me put this photo up. Tell us a little bit about this.
Well, I'm going to give a shout out to Sean. Sean is one of our members of the Bucks County Bigfoot group, and he concocted this poster or thing. He said he used AI or whatever, to do it. But we are having a meeting on Tuesday at the Borderline Cafe, where we meet in, Regalsville, which is close to Greg. Sometimes we meet down by my way, Warminster, which is more south or central Bucks County. But yeah, Sean put this together, just a neat looking poster. So
Sean never missed a meeting.
Sean's never missed a meeting, and he brings friends, and he's great. I love him. I'm going to butcher his last name, Kalefti. I don't know. Sorry, Sean. Yeah. So he put this poster together, which looks awesome.
Awesome.
And
Yeah.
I said, "Oh, you're hired, Sean," because I have been meaning to sort of get like a, merch or like a logo or something for our group. We don't have anything yet, but he put that together for us.
Interesting. Well, I'll tell you, depending on the weather, I'm not going to try. I'm not going to let it try to keep me in the house, but it depends on what happens. I'm looking forward to meeting everyone that night, and you as well, Bernadette, and Dr.
Yeah.
Greg, and Sean, and many others.
We have a great group. It's very informal. Come, not come, our first meeting, we had about 50 people. Regularly we have around 30. Sometimes we advertise outside of our group. I'll put it on like the Upper Bucks Facebook page or some kind of like open Facebook page, but most of the time we just keep it within our own group, which is private. And we talk. It's very informal. It's wonderful. There's always something new. There's always somebody with a new encounter, whether it happened years ago or, recently. Greg's always a font of information. So anything he has
I
to
hear
say
you.
is always wonderful. Yeah.
Mhm.
So we're meeting on Tuesday. The last time we met was down this way in July. And Gwen Purcell was our guest last time. She runs, I think
Mhm.
you know her, Dave. She runs
Yeah.
the what's her thing called? Central Pennsylvania Bigfoot Festival. She does the Strange Knox magazine. She's amazing. She's my I can't believe how much she does. Gwen is great. Anyway, she was our guest last
Yeah,
time,
she
but
is
we don't
great.
even. Mhm.
I am one of her many writers. I had an article that just was published that just came out in January in Strange Knox magazine. So if anybody hasn't heard about it, check it out, strangeknox.com.
Gwen is doing everything
Billy,
that
I'm
I
going to.
dream of doing. She runs a festival. She
Uh-huh.
has, a magazine, which is my background. I used to be, a news reporter moons ago. And so she's doing everything that I dream of doing. And right now we're just a Facebook group that meets occasionally, but I have these big dreams of the camp out, the festival, writing, and all this stuff. But Gwen's a superstar. Mm-hmm.
Mhm. Dr. Greg, are you still with us?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. I saw your block blink there for a second. I thought maybe you dropped off. But I'm going to let Billy take over for a second. I have something that I got to take care of. I got to fix. And I'll be back in like 2 minutes. So I'm going to take myself out and I'm going to leave you with a question. I'll be able to hear you across the room. This question is, what do you think about the gosh, what did I do with it? The Gimlin film. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
You want me to take this one, Bernadette?
You can start and I'll give my opinion. Go ahead, Greg.
So Bob Gimlin and Roger Patterson were rodeo promoters. They were rodeo guys, they were horse guys. And back in the 60s, they had heard about all these things that were going on up in the Humboldt County area. And I've been up there. I've gone on vacation there just to be there, to where they were.
Mm-hmm.
And they bought a bunch of film and went out and they shot a whole pile of film that was just, okay, here's us going down the mountainside. And the horse, they came around the corner of this brush and this horse shied. And of course, there was this Bigfoot that was walking through the bottom. And they shot some of the most iconic film there is
Yes.
of a Bigfoot. Now, that film has been looked at more than the Zapruder film, which of course is the film that was shot of Kennedy being assassinated. And it's never been able to have been disproved. Now, there's people that have said that they were the man in the monkey suit and everything else like that. That's a bunch of nonsense. Even the guy that was one of the special effects fellows for the Planet of the Apes movies tried to claim that they had made that. And later on, deathbed confession, he said, no, I just did it because it was going to promote the film. Now, when they shot that film, they presented it to science. And of course, they poo-pooed it. There's no known primates that have hairy breasts. Well, you're not looking at a known primate there, big boy. And they also took that film and they presented it to Disney. And Disney was at the top of their game as far as special effects at the time. And they didn't have any way to do what that animal did in that film. Now, there's some things on there that, unless you had studied anatomy, unless you studied locomotion, you would never have put together a female suit. Why would you go through all the trouble of being a female suit instead of a male
Right.
suit?
Right.
Now, in our bodies, and yes, their bodies are very much different. Their arms are longer, their legs are stronger. If you took a human being and projected them up to 9 feet, 900 pounds, and gave them the underlying skeleton of a human being, they would break their femur the first step. It's not designed the same way.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at this animal, the one thing that lines up perfectly is the breast line. Now, your collarbone comes across from your shoulder to your sternum. And if you divide that distance directly in half, that's called the midclavicular line. And if you go into your bedroom, take your shirt off, and look at yourself in the mirror, the distance from the crest of the hip to the bottom of the armpit, if you take that line and draw it at 50%, that's about where you're going to find your nipples and your breasts. Okay. And it's going to run the other axis right down the middle of the midclavicular line. And again, these guys were rodeo promoters. They were rodeo clowns. They were bucking bronchus. They weren't anatomists. They didn't study biomechanics. Okay. And they took a Division I athlete to try and show what this thing was doing. And they put them in a gate lab. Now, if you don't know what a gate lab is, it's a laboratory that's got cameras at every corner and shines in every different direction in the room. And then what they do is they put these markers on either side of every joint. And the markers show up with the cameras, and then you can see it in the computer. Well, they tried to replicate the stride that this thing had. They tried to replicate the rock of the hip the way that it does, and they could not do that. Okay, and again, they've looked at this film more than the Zapruder film, and it's never been able to be disproved because it's not a fake. It absolutely 100% is 100% legit film. And when you look, the other thing that you can look at on that film, I think it's frame 243. She turns and looks at the camera, and at the same time, she puts her right foot down. And when her foot strikes the ground, there's a bulge that appears in her thigh. Now, the quadriceps are made of 4 muscles. The lateral muscle is the one that she tore. And you can actually see it under the skin as her foot comes down. There's a bulge in the thigh. If it was a monkey suit, it would have never done that. Okay. It's a legitimate look at a legitimate animal. And I forget which author it was, but he was there. It might have been John Green. I think it was John Green said that he was there right afterwards. And he jumped off of a stump and landed with his heels in the same ground that this footprint was in. And he couldn't make the same mark that this thing did. Well, he's not 900 pounds. So now that area up there, if you've ever been into the Avenue of the Giants or been up in that part of Northern California, it's all rainforest. It's unbelievably thick. And we went from the main road from Garbersville over to the coast road to go down to Fort Bragg, and 44 miles. We didn't see a driveway, a house. Okay. It was just rainforest, as thick could be. And, you couldn't see 30 feet into the woods. Okay. And, that's the area where this thing was. And you talk to the people that are up there, if you or somebody, seen a Bigfoot, seen a Sasquatch, and they look at you like you're stupid because everybody up there has had an encounter. Okay. It's not a matter of, if they have or what they have. So I could tell you this story that I got from a fellow that read my report online. This gentleman was telling this story to his bandmates. They were in an AC/DC cover band. And this gentleman in the 70s worked out of a commune in Northern California. And they were actually up in Oregon. And this company that he worked for, what they would do is they would go in and cut the smaller trees before the big company would come in and cut the big trees. Back then, you could clear cut old growth forest. And what these guys would do, they just punch a hole back up into the mountain and cut what they needed, get it out of there, and then just let Mother Nature close it all back in. Anyway, they're up on the mountainside. They're having some lunch about 11:30. The mule that they used to sledge the logs down to the road where the trucks were, she was having some lunch, and there were some deer walked up and started eating at the top of the oak tree that they had just fallen. And all of a sudden, the deer picked their head up and were looking intently into the woods, and they took off. And 2 seconds later, the mule picked her head up and she ran down and dove into the back of the pickup truck. And then they said this giant bellowing roar came from the mountain. They just ran down, dove in the truck. They drove about 4 miles till they could secure the mule. They went back to their base camp, and their boss was like, you just left thousands and thousands of dollars of equipment up there. Go get it. You're not going to be leaving it lay there. So they went and got it, brought it all back down, and called it a day. Well, when they went back to work the next day, they were met by 2 Oregon State troopers and a park ranger. Met them at their upper camp, and they separated them, and they asked them what had happened. And when they got back together, the state troopers were not happy. They both told the same story, and they left. And they turned to this park ranger. It's like, what the heck was that all about? It's like, you know what this is about? They know what this is about. Look at your trucks. Well, all the logging trucks that they used to get these big giant logs out of the mountains were ripped up. The doors have been ripped off the hinges. The hoods have been ripped off the hinges. There was 300-400 pound boulders that were smacked against the side of it. These trucks that were there, it was $500,000 worth of damage that was done. And there's no way a human being could have ever done what these people had done, or what these Bigfoot had done. And so they just went about their day. Well, as he's telling this story, the drummer starts laughing, and he says, "Oh, you're laughing at me." It's like, I've had people laugh at me, and I've had people laugh at me too. I don't really care, but whatever. He says, "No, I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing with you." Well, here he tells them that he had worked for NASA for almost 30 years. And he claimed that NASA had as big a budget for Bigfoot as what they had for going to Mars. I can only tell you the story that the guy told me. I don't know if that's true or not. I haven't delved into NASA's finances, but I can only tell you what the man told me. And I found that to be a pretty interesting story.
Mm-hmm.
Billy, you have a question?
Actually, yeah, since he just brought up NASA, that kind of reminds me, like, what kind of, like, has anybody really seen, like, say, satellite imagery with Bigfoot in it?
Well, there was
allegedly.
There was somebody that just put a question up. He said that he was out in Western Pennsylvania working on the windmills out there, and had seen one. I read in an account that these guys were up on one of the windmills and looked down and saw them. And so Western Pennsylvania, of course, is just all wilderness. But to go back to your question, there are some pictures that you can find on Google Earth that show them. So I don't know about satellites, but I know if you look around a little bit and just Google Sasquatch on Google Earth, it's there are pictures that it could be.
I would add one thing.
Go ahead.
I would add, one thing about the Patterson-Gimlin film, which I 100% believe it's true, based on everything you said, everything I've read. Yes, that is absolutely real. Interesting little fact that I learned. I went out to Colorado and I visited the Sasquatch Outpost. It's a Bigfoot museum. Highly recommend. Wonderful. Could have spent many more hours there than I was there. I was there with, my husband and daughter. And I mean, yeah. Anyway, one of the little factoids that I kind of got out of it, and of course they had the Patterson-Gimlin film there, is they mentioned, that the terrain that she was walking on, right, It was a dry rock bed, and right, and how smoothly she walked, right? Not looking. If it was a guy in a suit, right, you would be watching where you stepped, and it would have been awkward. It would have been like jagged how you walked, and yet how smoothly Patty walked through this terrain, which couldn't have been comfortable in bare feet for anything. But it was just like one of these things that kind of, yeah, I mean, I didn't really need to be convinced about that. I already knew that the Patterson Gimlin film was real. But when you look at how smoothly she walks across this terrain that could not be comfortable from a human standpoint, even if you're in a costume with boots, which of course it wasn't, you would be walking much more awkwardly and watching your step because it was like stones and rocks and it wasn't an even surface and all that. So, anyway, yes, it's true. And if you're in Colorado, make sure you go to Bailey, Colorado, to the Sasquatch Outpost. It's great.
I've been up to Portland, Maine, and Lawrence Coleman's museum is up there. He has one of the original copies of the Patterson Gimlin film there.
Mhm.
It's quite the museum. You could spend quite a long time there looking at everything that they have there. It's pretty interesting.
Mhm. I'll get there someday.
Yeah, it's worth the
Trying to
trip.
reach them all. That's what I try to do, is I try to promote. So I'm not one that has seen one, but I also run a page on Facebook, Bigfoot festivals, conferences, and events. I just, anything I hear about, that I find out about, I post, I put it up there for my own, knowledge also. But you'd be surprised. And I feel like there's been an uptick. Some of these conferences are only 1, 2, 3 years old. You have the Salt Fork one that's been going on for 20 years or something, or maybe even longer in Ohio. But a lot of these conferences are kind of new. So I feel like I kind of caught the wave of the Bigfoot interest. But it's amazing how many events there are going on every weekend across the country. And so I just run this page and I just post everything that I can that I see that's coming up. And I'm going to try to get to more. I've been to about, in fact, I wrote them down. I've been to the Estes Park, Colorado conference. I've been to the Salt Fork, Ohio. That was my first one. We went there not knowing what to expect. It was wonderful. I've been to the West Virginia Bigfoot Festival, to the Whitehall, New York Festival. I've been to the Central PA one, the Gwen Purcell one, um, Pennsylvania Research Bigfoot Camp, and I've been to the ECBRO down in Virginia. So I'm just like a groupie, I guess, really. I just love going to these conferences, talking to people. And something that I've told some of these organizers, and I hope they're hearing me, is that I don't need the big names, right? I'm not impressed. I don't need the stars of these shows. It is great talking to the people, right? You have these open mic forums, or just in the hallways or outside by the campfire, and you talk to the people and they have a story because they're all there for a reason. And a lot of them come there because they've had an experience, they've had an encounter, they've had something that happened, they don't know what it is. So they're drawn to this to talk to people, and it's just wonderful. And so I just anyway, it's my hobby. So when I have time, I love to go to these types of events. Are we still on? I can't hear you.
All right, looks like Dave's still muted from his little trip.
Oh, okay. And yeah. So anyway, I have this other page too. We have over 2,000 people that are on there. And I just try to promote everybody. If you're having an event, a conference, a festival, it's on there because I think, and I always tell people, because my family kind of poo-poos it sometimes, but I'm like, you know what? You don't even need to be into Bigfoot to enjoy these things. There's food, there's music, there's fun people, there's vendors. Uh, it's a great time no matter what. Of course, I'm always interested in the speakers, right? I want to hear the real stories, the real encounters. But they're a lot of fun, and I hope to have one someday. It's on my bucket list. Right, Greg? We're gonna host something someday, right?
Sounds like a plan.
All right, it's definitely a plan.
All right. I apologize for my mic being muted. I couldn't see through my microphone here. I didn't realize I was muted. So,
It's all right.
Greg, Dr. Greg, can you take this next question from Brian Clark?
Sure. I see it on the screen here. I don't think they're going to allow something like that out just because there's too much money involved. And I think also that the government doesn't know what they want to know about this thing. That's why they're studying as hard as they can. As I said, I've seen one that was cloaked up, and I think that that's where they're looking to see what they can do and why they can do it. So I don't think that they will. And yeah, they're releasing alien files now, and it's like, yeah, come on. I mean, everybody and their brother knows somebody who's seen one. Back in the '70s, there was a summer in the late '70s. Everybody and their brother was seeing UFOs. I have a friend of mine that grew up a half mile from where I'm living now, who had one right over his house when he was 14 years old. He said it was 400 feet up. It was big as Veterans Stadium. Never made a sound until it left. I know a buddy of mine that I played baseball with. He was an F-4 fighter pilot out of Greenland, and they had one on radar, and they could see it. It was 30 miles out in front of them, and they were given permission to go after it with full afterburner, which they did. And the one sweep of the radar was 200 miles, and it was gone instantaneously right in front of them. So, I mean, that's not, and again, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, from my understanding, they have 9 of them there. They have all the critters that they pulled out of the Roswell wreck. And there was a UFO that went down in Western Pennsylvania in 1964 or 65. They watched it come across the North Pole. It came across Cleveland and then crashed. That's fairly well documented. You can look that up online.
Kecksburg? Is that the Kecksburg one?
Yeah, Kecksburg, yeah. The one lady, they made 200, 300 phone calls out of the local farmhouse, and the lady never had anything on her bill. And all the locals saw it before the Army got there. And they said the biggest thing they were surprised about was how fast the Army got there. They were on top pretty quick. But so to answer Brian's question, it's like I don't think that they're anytime soon they're going to let anything information out about what the government knows. They're keeping that quiet. And again, I don't know why. I don't know why any of the government officials that I've spoken with will not talk to you about it. So they shut down. They get quiet real quick.
Okay, this next question is for. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
Somebody was saying apparently Lauren Coleman's museum moved. It was in Portland. I don't know where it got to, but I've been up that way in a while. But what's your next question, Dave?
All right, it's actually for both of you. Dr. Greg, you can go first. What part of the research do you enjoy doing the most?
You were seized up there for a minute, Dave. Did you ask a question?
Yes, I'm sorry. What part of Bigfoot research do you enjoy doing the most?
Go ahead, Bernadette.
Me? I don't really know that I'm out there so much. It's not like people are calling me with, reports that they've seen something. The reports that I've, received in the past few years have all been back in the 80s. And I still get excited about it because I can't believe, there's 3 different incidents that I can that I've heard about recently, but they happened back in the 80s, right? So nobody's calling me up to say that they've seen. Well, the most recent one was like Plumsteadville, maybe 5 years ago. And I can't get that guy to come to a meeting or meet with me or talk with me. I don't know. I
I know
can't
those. I
explain.
know those gentlemen.
Yeah, I
Bernadette,
can't get him.
I'm friends with.
I don't know. Greg kind of cut off. You know,
Sort of.
I like to hike. I like to camp, but in a car or a trailer. And I'll tell you, Greg was one of those ones after I met him and he told me a story. I thought, I'm never going camping in a tent either again. Uh, so it definitely gave me a perspective about camping. Not that I did it so much, but I mean, I don't know that I would even call myself researcher, right? I mean, I like to get out in the woods. I like to walk. I like to hike. I wish there was more activity in this area. I just don't think there is as much activity in our area as there are in other parts of Pennsylvania, especially Western Pennsylvania, maybe the Pocono area, North Central Pennsylvania, as there are in this area. But not to dismiss it, um, I would love to have that encounter. I would love to have that sighting. So I'll get out there. If somebody calls me and says that there's something, in fact, somebody on our group posted something recently in the past couple of months, and it was interesting, and it caught a lot of it caught a lot of activity, but never really, led to somewhere. She lives on the river, so Bucks County, Pennsylvania. We border New Jersey, so the Delaware River, and she heard somebody across from the Jersey side say something like, "What the heck was that? Was that a monkey?" And there was some kind of activity. So she got on Facebook and was posting and kind of like, looking for this person. And interestingly enough, a few years ago in this same general area, somebody posted on a general Facebook page, not a Bigfoot page, just like a town Facebook page, some kind of an experience in his backyard. He has some birds and there was something, and people joking were like, "Oh, maybe it was a Bigfoot." But people like myself were like, "Yeah, maybe it was," you know. So I don't discount that we have one or more in the area. I just don't know where to go. I have one other guy. Again, he just kind of dropped out of the scene. At first he was like texting me about some activity on his property. And as I texted him back, he backed off. So I don't know. I want to go to his property. I want to walk around. I want to look. But until lets me, I can't go. I don't even know exactly where he lives. I have a general area, but I don't know. I'm open to anything. If someone were to call me and say that they've seen something, or I would definitely go. But I'm just living in suburbia on a regular street. I'm not living in the woods or on a forest or near a game land. I don't own property anywhere. Um, it's all interesting to me. I follow everything. I read a lot. I listen to a lot, but I haven't had the experience. But if someone were to ask me to come to their property and look at something, I would go in an instant. I would. So call me.
For me,
So, Bernadette, go ahead. I'm
Dave.
sorry. No, I was just gonna. Bernadette, you referred to Plumstead. Was that the case with the son and father coming from the fire department and the Bigfoot
Yes.
crossed over?
Yes.
Okay.
And I reached out to him right away. And he said, "Oh, well, get in line. I'll talk to you when I can." And I've reached out to him so many times, like, "Hey, do you have
Yeah,
time for me now?"
I
And
was
he
one of the
just,
people standing in line. So
I'm sorry?
I was one of the people standing in line.
Yeah, and he just would never talk to me about it. And I don't know why, but I know exactly where he's talking about. I've driven that area. I was not far
Yeah.
from that area today, and I always have my eyes open. I was up in Ottsville today, and I have my eyes open all the time. People laugh. Oh, like, what are you looking for? I'm like, you know what I'm looking for when I'm on a car ride somewhere like
Yeah,
that.
Homestead is right next door to me.
Okay, well, so
That
he had
close.
that
Yeah.
sighting. So I would say that's the most recent
Mhm.
sighting, right? And then we had our guy Matthew that came to our meeting one time. His sighting was the Jersey side of, like, Regalsville at a boat launch.
Okay.
And
2018.
okay, and he wrote about it, and then he came to our meeting and he told us about it. 100%, legit. I believe him. And then since then, I've talked to people or texted with people that have had an encounter near um, Peace Valley Park, uh, near Tanner's. If you know Alms House Road, there's the Tanner's Farm Market. So this woman saw something cross the road there, Hatboro Road. She called it Monster Road. I've been in touch by I've been in touch with her son, and she's,
Mhm.
elderly and just doesn't want to meet with me. I just can't make people come. I can't make people meet with me. And then the New Britain encounter, which I think is on our page. And I've texted with him, and I would love to meet with him and have him come to our meeting, but he's kind of backed off. But it's an incredible sighting, if you ask me. It was around, like, 1985 in New Britain. If you can picture where Bristol Road meets 202. And he was a high school kid, and it was after school, and he was in the woods and just kind of fooling around with one of his guy friends, and had this sighting of what he called a monster. And it was standing behind a fallen tree. And, judging from the height of the fallen tree and how tall it was, it had to be at least 8 feet tall. And he is a 15-year-old kid and just scared to death and just ran home. But I would love to meet this guy and have him come to our meetings, but so far he has, I can't get the people to come. But I believe them, of course, 100%.
Mhm.
But um I haven't had any people come to us with any recent sightings.
Okay.
But
Let's
I
go.
don't doubt that they could be in Tyler State Park, for instance. This, one woman that came to our meeting, the very first meeting, swore that there was a clan in Tyler State Park, which is about 20 minutes from me, like, Newtown. And I've been there many times. Um,
That woman had 900 pictures that didn't show a thing.
I
She
know.
tried, she
Hmm.
tried to claim that this was a Bigfoot and that was a Bigfoot, and it was. I'm sorry.
A lot
Okay.
of her stuff was woo and paranormal, which at the time I didn't even understand or consider or, like, want to even think about. Since then, I am open to paranormal. I'm open to the woo. I'm open to the portal. I'm open to the alien stuff. I'm open to all that. I would like to meet with her again and kind of revisit what she has to say and show, you know. Yeah, I know. It did seem sort of out there when I first met her, but I'd like to meet with her again. I'm open to it all. I don't know. I would love to think that a Bigfoot would come to my little park down the street. We had a bear there, you know? So like, my feeling, hey,
Right.
there's not many bears walking around Warminster, right? But a bear did in fact make its way, you know, 100 yards from my house,
Mhm.
following creek, following the creeks, uh, got lost coming from the Poconos probably. But I figure if a bear can show up 100 yards from my house, so could a Bigfoot. Although I don't expect a Bigfoot to come walking down my street. But in the hundreds or thousands of stories that I've read, there have been people that have said, listen, I don't live in the woods. I don't live in the country. I don't, I live in a normal neighborhood, and this is what I saw. So
Mhm.
who knows? But I do feel like I need to get into the woods, more often. Of course, I am that person that has a genuine, respectful fear of, let's say, man, bear, snakes, ticks. I don't want Lyme disease, right? So I'm not just going to go running into the woods willy-dilly, right? Um,
Mhm.
I do love the woods. I mean, when I was young, I always played in the woods. I had no fear. Now I have a respectful fear of the woods. Doesn't stop me from going there, but um yeah, I don't know.
So to
Okay.
answer your
Our
question
next.
on my part, to me, it's the thrill of the hunt, the finding the news story, talking to people from all over the country, Canada. I was recently on a cruise last year down to the Caribbean, and we were in the Bahamas and just hanging out in the pool that the cruise line had on the island. And I was talking to a gentleman from Maine, from Bangor, and any good Bigfoot stories? He's like, I have one, absolutely. He had a friend that liked to hunt very deep in the woods, and this fella knew where there was a tree that had been burned out, had been hit by lightning. It was all hollowed out, and he got there before first light, got snuggled up inside this tree in his chair, and he's sitting there, and he hears, just as the sun's coming up, he hears crunching coming from behind him, and crunch, 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 and the Bigfoot walked out about 30 feet out in front of him, looked into the tree that he was sitting inside, and just turned and walked away. So for me, it's the hunt of the story, because there's so many people out there that have spent decades in the woods, and these people have encounters, and like Bernadette said before, it's gotten more comfortable to talk about it. People don't ridicule you. People don't think that you're nuts, or stupid, because there are groups like ours and there are podcasts like yours where people share their information. And again, it's like,
Mhm.
I have no reason to lie to you. I'm not trying to make 15 minutes of fame with my story or anything else like that. But can we address Kim's question there real quick, Bruce?
Yeah, sure.
Dog man. Oh geez.
So I have a guy who belongs to our group who lives about 4 miles, 3 miles from where I'm living right now. And he said that when he was a child, he and his dad were driving down the road and they saw this thing. It was trying to hide behind an apple tree. And it dropped down and it started running. And he said it was about 20 feet long. And he said it had the tail of a dog, the back end of a dog, it had the hands of a human and the face of a dog, but it was huge. And his dad tried to hit it with the car. They got home and he put shotguns in every room in the house and locked the doors up. The following day, the following morning, the next door neighbor, it sounded like World War III had broken out over there at the next door neighbor's farm. And he had 16 guard dogs for, sheep and goats and cattle, and 14 of them ended up dead. State
Huh.
police came in with some sort of paramilitary SWAT team or something like this. Again, all kinds of shooting went on. And it wasn't too long after that, a helicopter come in with a sling and a tarp and picked this thing up and left with it. And they were told absolutely positively they were not to talk about it. So that's my one and only encounter that I can recount. And that was local to where I am here in Wingap. That was not far away at all.
Wow.
That happened back in the 70s. So, and again, same thing. I mean, the Beast of Bray Road, you look at what goes on down there in Land Between the Lakes. Land Between the Lakes there's some nasty stuff goes on down there. I had a story that was relayed to me from down there. There was a young couple that was hiking, and as young couples will do, they went off the trail to make love to each other, and he was ripped limb from limb, and she was raped to death and ripped apart. And I asked, why wasn't this discussed in the national news? And bad for business. They don't want to. They didn't want to talk about it because it would not be good for business. And somebody had put on here before about the state parks losing business. And yes, there are people that would not go to a state park or a national park if they knew that there was Bigfoot there. And then there's people like us that would be standing there in line first thing when they open. So I don't know that would hurt business any at all. Matter of fact, Mary Fabian told us a story about she was on an investigation down in Oklahoma, and one of the trucks had broken down, and they were sitting there in the parking lot of a casino, and they watched the two Bigfoot come out of the darkness, ran across the parking lot of the casino, went in between the two buildings that were there, and that's where all the dumpsters were. They were in their dumpster diving, and they grabbed a bunch of stuff and left. And they went inside and talked to the people that were heads of security. Do you have video surveillance of the parking lot? Yes, we do. We'd like to see that. No, you can't, and you can't have it. And again, their thinking was that it would keep people from coming to the casino. The person that they talked to, the manager of security, said, we have trouble enough getting our people to leave at night when they're done with their shift to go out to their car because we know that they're out there. So. But Dogman's a whole nother podcast. That's a whole nother conversation.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that was something. When I first heard about that, I was like, come on, man. Bigfoot's crazy enough. I can't be getting into other creatures.
There's so many things out there that we don't know what there is. I mean, you go down into the deepest parts of the Brazilian rainforest, there's people down there that swear there's still dinosaurs. Same thing over in the Congo. You talk to the natives over there, and they'll tell you they see all kinds of things. And we know less about the ocean than we know about outer space, so that's a whole nother topic in itself. But the people who think that these things can't exist, they need to get out off their couch and get out into the woods and actually do some research, because you'll find out otherwise quickly.
Well, you hear about these pterodactyl type birds at Gwen's conference, Thunderbirds or something. When I was at Gwen's conference last summer, there was a man that showed up just to tell his story, and it was incredible. I mean, the story he told was of like this huge winged creature that came across the tree line over a swing set and was like ready to like almost grab him. If he hadn't been so close to the building smoking a cigarette, maybe it could have grabbed him. And I mean, he came to that conference just to tell that story, and you had to believe him. And I've seen other accounts too, in Pennsylvania even.
Well, the Indians of North America have talked about thunderbirds forever,
But these are 20th century type stuff, not,
right.
I don't know when the Indian stories were, but yeah, I guess there's a lot out there, more and more, I believe fairy tales are true, right? So, the werewolves and all these things, you thought they were childhood stories, but maybe they're all based in truth.
Billy, how'd you get involved in all this? Did you have an encounter? What brought you to this subject matter?
A couple reasons. One, I got roped into it. I do, work with my wife with Crafty crafty witch soiree. And, of course, like you, I grew up hunting, fishing, trapping, spent more time in the woods than on concrete. Same thing with that. And, I think there's definitely, like you said, things out there that people that never leave the confines of concrete never necessarily know exist.
True story.
Mm-hmm.
How about you, Dave? How'd you get involved in all this?
Well, I'll be 63 in July, and I've been going since I was 19. That's when I basically started my journey. My family has seen far more tragic things that happen. Some of it, I'm going to say a lot of it was associated with strange happenings, paranormal wise. And in 1982, I had a partial Bigfoot sighting on a farm. Other than that, all the other things that go with it, like footprints and tree structures and, all that stuff, I experienced that back in 1982. And in 2020, when I moved here to Bucks County, now prepare yourself for this. Not once, but twice. The first time I had an experience with Dogman with a relative. The second time, by myself, 3:00 in the morning.
In Bucks
I'm not
County?
going to go in Bucks County. Yes, I'm not going to go into great details right now because I'm filming a documentary, and once that comes out, then I'll go ahead and I'll do interviews.
Awesome.
Yep.
Wow. I don't
And let me
want to
tell
hear
you,
about Dogman in Bucks County.
well, let me tell you this. I don't want to see a third one.
Oh,
When I saw the first one, I didn't think I'd see a second one. Now, here's the thing. Both sightings happened, in the exact same spot. So,
Well,
more
wow.
in my research, as far as Bigfoot goes, they do tend to show up in the same places at the same time every year. I was out at the Sportsman Show, and there was a couple of Native Americans that had an outfitting site up way up in Canada. There was a 31-hour ride to where they would pick you up, and then an 8-hour buggy ride up into the woods. And I asked them, "You guys have any Sasquatch in that area?" And they answered you like how you would answer somebody if they asked you, "Do you see deer cross the road during the rut?" It's like, of course you do, every time. And that's the way they answered me. It's like, "Oh yeah, they come through in June and July. They're going down in the United States. They follow the roots and the berries and everything as it's blooming and coming ripe. They follow it down and they come back. You can pretty much set your watch by them. They come through every year at the same time." In John Green's book, Sasquatch, the Apes Among Us, he interviews a lady who was in her 90s. Now, you got to remember, that book was printed in 1973, before the internet, when a long-distance phone call was a big deal. And he hunted up 1,400 different stories to write that book. And one of the ladies that he interviewed was from way up in northern Idaho. And she said very matter-of-factly, "You knew not to put the cattle up in the high pastures in June and July because the hairy men had to eat them all." So, it's been my experience through my research that they do tend to come through the same areas in a fairly routine manner as far as the timing of the year. So,
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll tell you this, Dr. Gray. My second encounter with Dogman was 7 months after the first one. So, and till this day, it just, I think it's it's never going to go away. I mean, it affects. Here's how it affects my mind. I could be sitting there watching a good movie, and it'll just pop in my head, and I'm like drifting away, drifting out of that movie and thinking about, the incident. So, yeah.
I
But like I
you,
said,
brother.
I don't want to see it, and I hope I never do.
I've laid awake hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of nights and replayed that night through my mind. What could I have done differently? What did I hear? And it just, it comes down to, and I would have loved to have seen it, but it was pitch black. You couldn't see the hand in front of your face. But I can tell you with 100% certainty, with no doubt in my mind at all the animals in North America that I didn't hear. And there's no way a human being could have ever achieved that sound. I don't care if you were a professional opera singer, you couldn't have made the sound that this thing made. That scream was like 20, it seemed like it was a lot longer, but it was probably about 20, 25 seconds long. And again, it shook my body to the point where I couldn't see. And the only thing that's ever done that to me is a top fuel dragster launching off the starting line out at Maple Grove. So, so you tell me what it was, because I don't know what it was. I'm 99% sure that what I heard was a Bigfoot, but I can't say that's what it was simply because I didn't see it. But again, within a 20-mile circle, I know 9 people that have seen at least one, and one was at arm's length. So.
Okay. Billy, you have a question? We're going to go about 15 more minutes, and then we're going to close it out.
Yeah, so when it comes to like evidence of encounters, what kind do you consider the most credible, whether it be like, footprints, audio, visual sightings, or even environmental disturbances?
It's a great question. The problem is now is AI. But
Right.
if you go back, there's stuff that was not influenced by AI. Go just listen to the Sierra sounds that were taken up in the Sierra mountains. There was no AI. And that again, that set of audio has been run through every kind of imaginable scrutiny, and it's legit. But Dr. Meldrum, God rest his soul, is the one that figured out that these animals have a mid-tarsal break. Now, when a human being's foot hits the ground, it's called heel strike. And what will happen is then your foot rolls up, and as the balls of the feet hit the ground, your whole foot becomes a solid member. Okay. And then as your heel comes up, now you're going to spring off the balls of your feet, and the end of it's called toe off. Your foot does not bend 90 degrees in the middle. A Bigfoot's foot does that. And that's probably one of the greatest pieces of evidence there are, is that these footprints, you see fake footprints and you can't replicate what they're doing. And so there's a mid-tarsal break, which leaves that ridge in the center of the footprint as the foot bends at 90 degrees. And this is clearly evident in the Patterson Gimlin film. You can see the foot bend to 90 degrees, and you can see the calf muscles strain as her foot comes off the ground. And there was no way to fake that back in 1967. It's just impossible. And thank God what we have for the technology now to be able to clean that up and digitize it so you can see it as well as you can. Because he was probably peeing his pants as he was taking the video and trying to keep the film still. But, Dr. Meldrum said it quite well, while there's no evidence. Really? Because the critter leaves behind hair, blood. The skookum cast is of one where the whole animal was laying in the mud. They've got blood samples, they've got tissue samples, they've got hair samples. All comes back as a unknown primate, and the hair is definitely different than what we have, or any known primate that we know of. That the hair is different. So there's a lot of different ways you can look at this, and there's all kinds of good recordings. I mean, there's and there's good recordings of interviews too, like Albert Ostman, who was taken and carried through the woods for 3-4 hours and kept as a pet for a week until he got loose from the thing. I mean, there's all, and I was in the military and did law enforcement as part of my job in the military, and we were taught how to tell if people were lying. And Albert Ostman's interview, he's telling the truth. He's telling you exactly what happened to him. So that's a great question as far as evidence goes. I mean, and it's building. I think that one of the reasons that old time film, like what the Patterson Gimlin film was, came out so clear is because of frequency of vibration. Everything has a frequency of vibration that holds it together. The bridge outside my office is a suspension bridge. It was built by Roebling. The one vibration that will break a bridge like that up is troops marching in step. Everything has a vibration. And I think that the modern frequency of vibration of recording instruments doesn't match up with the frequency of vibration that these animals have. And that's one of the reasons why you see so many blurry vision pictures of these things. I could be all wet with that theory. That's strictly a theory. But it's something that I've sat and thought about for quite a while. Why, with these magnificent cameras that we have on cell phones anymore, and why don't they come out as well as they should? And I was talking to somebody recently. They were talking about how the one that was on their farm was being pretty disruptive, and the answer that was given to him was to take and put game cameras out all over the property. They don't like them. I don't know if there's a frequency of sound that they make, but they do avoid them. There's a group out in the Olympic Peninsula in Washington. It's called the Olympic Project. They've got over 2,000 cameras out. And I don't know what they're coming up with. Most of the camera film that you see from game cameras is always at distance. It's never right up close. And there is one exception to that. There's a pretty decent piece of video of one that's walking underneath the camera, and it looks up at it. You can look that up. It's pretty interesting looking. So, but yeah, great question, Bill.
Dr. Greg, what advice would you give someone that's just getting involved in the cryptid/paranormal?
Well, I was just talking to a guy down in the Carolinas. He had one outside of his house, and he didn't know what to do about it. His first question was, what are the names of these things? He had always heard it being told that it was called a hairy man. And I told him, I said, that is really pretty regional as far as what people call it. In the Carolinas, booger, wood booger, hairy man's Ohio, grass man in Ohio. You can down Louisiana, they call them rougarou. You go over to Tibet or Nepal, they call them meta. Russia, they call them mensch. They call them almaste. Over in China, they call them sarin man. Of course, in Australia, they call them yowie. But as far as he didn't know what to do about it. He said the thing was always out there when he was walking his dogs. He could see it. It was looking at him. I said, talk to him. Go out there without the dog. They don't like dogs. They will kill your dog. They'll rip your dog apart. Do not go. If you're going to go into the woods, to look for these things, do not take a dog with you. Okay. They will. I just read one the other day. The people had this big Rottweiler that was sitting outside their tent, and the Bigfoot ran by, snatched the Rottweiler right up off the ground by its neck and left with it, never to be seen again. So, but I tell people, and I told this gentleman, go out there with peace in your heart, let him know it's okay for him to be there. And, we're going to be neighbors. And it grunted at him and smacked a tree and walked off, and he hasn't seen it since. But I would suggest that you read as much as you can, join groups like what we have, learn from people who have experience. I mean, I've got 40 years of research, just myself, and there's other people that have even more who do a lot more than what I do. But read some of the books that are out there. I've got over a dozen books. I've got Dr. Meldrum's book. I got a book on sightings of all around Pennsylvania back in the 1800s and 1900s. And so read, study, and then go out and look for them. go out with people who have been there and know, and understand you if you want to see one of these things, you need to go into the woods with peace in your heart, because they can feed off of that. They know, and you'll see one if they'll let you see them. And again, that's my opinion. Some people come and buy them accidentally. There's all kinds of cases like that. There's hundreds and hundreds of cases like that. But go into the woods with peace in your heart, and you'll be okay.
Okay. Bernadette, you want to comment on that as well?
On what, seeing them, or
How people
what
get
advice
started.
would you give someone who's new? Yeah.
someone who's new? Well, I'm sort of new, right? This is only 6 years, and I'm just diving into it all. I just love it. Um, Sasquatch Sasquatch Chronicles is one of my podcasts to go to. There's like 1,000 episodes. Just dive right in. If you're on a long car ride or whatever, listen. Of course, we have Dave's podcast I just came across now. So I'll be looking at yours and going back. Yeah, just listen to all the stories. There's so much out there, and we can learn from so many people that have had the actual experiences. And I agree with Greg. I just got to go out there with love in my heart, right? I mean, I'm going to be carrying, so there's a whole, people talk about whether to carry or not. Well, if I'm in the woods, I'm going to be carrying. But from what I've heard from other people that have had experiences with these creatures and stuff, if you go out there and explain to them either out loud or, mentally, I'm not here to harm you. This is just for my own, protection. I would never shoot a Bigfoot. No, that's, I just wouldn't. But I'm going to carry, right? So yeah, go out there with peace in your heart, listen, look, be open to it, and, dive into it. I'm telling you, I just love these festivals and events and conferences and talking to people. Like, when I went to Salt Fork for the first time, one of the first people that I met, they had this like podcast row, and this gentleman came up. He was probably in his 70s, and I was like, listening to his story. And so he grew up in Ohio, just like you guys, Billy and Greg, hunting, fishing his whole life, had never seen a Bigfoot, laughed at the stories until he saw one, right? So here's this guy in his 70s, been out there all those years. But the previous year, when he was out there hunting, he had his first encounter. So you just never know, right? People that have been out there forever have never seen one. Someone else just randomly experiences one, and good for them. But just be open to it. If you're open-minded, dive into it, because there's a lot out there. These people are not lying. There's too many people that have had experiences, and all the Native Americans, and they all have their own word for Bigfoot. And it is kind of crazy to normal people. If you tell them that you're into this world, they look at you like you're crazy, but I don't care. I hold my ground because I've read too much. I've met enough people. I've heard enough stories that I'm convinced that they're out there.
To piggyback off what you just said, Bernadette, been in the woods all my life. As I said, this is my 60th year hunting. I started hunting with my father when I was 4, as soon as I could keep up with him. And I've had one encounter. Renee DeHinden came over and spent his entire life up in the Pacific Northwest, and never saw one. Saw tracks, heard them, but never saw one. So it's not a thing that is common. There's people that have had multiple encounters. There's people that have seen multiples because of where they live or where they are or what they do. I watched a program on television. The gentleman was a wood estimator for 30 years in the Pacific Northwest. He was in the woods 6 days a week. Saw 2 in 30 years being out there every day. So it's not a common thing. It's like, don't don't think that you're just going to, oh, well, I want to go find Bigfoot and we're going to go out and see him. It's not that common.
Right.
So, you know, and that makes it even more mysterious is because it isn't common. You know, people don't get to see these things every single day. It's just,
Right.
it's an unusual experience and one that will never leave you. And going back to what you said, Dave, it changes you, pal. You won't ever look at the woods the same. Not ever. Nope.
No.